Alright, shed update time. Somewhat overdue, but I've been just keeping busy trying to get this done. And I have somewhat succeeded. Just about ready to put the bed back on the truck. Well, the bed's ready to go on. I'm just getting everything cleaned up and I gotta bring the truck over here. But it's finally done, or at least this part of it is. I've got a bunch of stuff left to do to just keep picking away at once it's back together. So I've got to do the back edge, patch all of these little spots that I've marked out. Those are all shot from the bottom up. A couple of spots over there I gotta fix. Then I gotta do the side strips of the wheel tubs. And I gotta do around the wheel tub. But that can all happen once it's back together. I need my truck back and I don't have a place to put it. So it's going back together. I got all this stuff put together. Got all the wood blocks in. This came out pretty good. Side I wasn't quite happy with. I didn't trim this enough because this is raised up and then it's a flange sorta. Didn't trim the edge quite enough, so it's stuck up. So a bunch of these welds I had to really like beat it down and kind of curve it like that to make it low enough to weld so it looks slightly crappy. It's fine. It's a truck bed floor. It's gonna be okay. But it's a little bit twisted, but again, it's fine. Looking at the rest of this bed floor, it's really not out of place at all. So I got these corners all welded up. That's the way it was from the factory. I would feel bad because the welds are kind of snotty, but the ones that were there were kind of snotty too, so I don't feel bad. Yeah, the bottom's all plug welded. I was quite annoyed. I got to welding these braces back on. It's 2 plug welds, 1 on each. I get this one tacked, I go to start plug welding it, and I run out of welding wire. I was not pleased. So I was able to kind of salvage about 6 inches of wire that was still kind of like hung up on the spool. I got that broken free. That was just enough to get the other side like tacked. So I'm gonna have to finish welding that when I get more wire. But that's enough to hold it in place. I hope to move the bed and set it on. It's not a piece that's under constant load necessarily. It's just, it needs to be welded a little better than it is. Otherwise the bedside will flop eventually. So, things to do, but I'm glad I had just enough to get them both tacked, because if I didn't, I don't know how I'd get the bed moved and put on, because it's pretty much where you lift from. So, in hindsight, if I had gotten those plug welded before I ran this fatty bead down this one, I would have been fine, and then I wouldn't have had like 2 inches of this semi-necessary bead. But hindsight's 20/20. You don't have a crystal ball. So that is what is up. Shortly I will get the truck and I will get some guys over and we'll lift this up, and there's going to be a certain amount of screwing around with all these wood blocks because they're not all necessarily centered quite right. So there's going to be some swearing involved, but should be able to get it on, and then just put the bumper and the taillights back on. And I gotta hook my radio antenna back up so I can go cruising tonight, because I want to go cruising. It's been too long. I also got the front all painted. This was fun. This was all like expanded and blowing out, and it always rubbed on the tailgate right here. You can see it actually dented the tailgate because it was so expanded. So I like just beat the hell out of it with my pick hammer and like shattered and broke all the rust chunks out of there. The outer layer is really rusty. The inner layer still got some meat left, so it kind of worked out. So I just chiseled all the rust chunks out and then had these all bent out, 415'd all of it, and while it was still wet, just hammered it all sort of semi-flat. And yeah, so that's like damage control. I'll eventually fix that. But, you know, this is all expanded in here. You can't see it yet, but it's all about to go. So I gotta fix all that eventually. But that's just damage control there. But as I was saying, I got the front all painted. It looks really bad on camera. In real life, it's not that far off. Well, I guess in this lighting it's pretty far off. This is the paint I used on the engine. It's a lot more green. It looks gray in the camera, but it's actually fairly close. Close enough for in between the bed. I mean, you're never gonna see it. It's just so that it's not a different color. So, and I got this all seam sealed up, so that's not gonna get moisture in it and rust. So that came up pretty good, and for the hell of it, I seam sealed the bottom edge just so I had the stuff, so that should work. And I'll eventually seam seal the inside seam too, so that'll be good. So I think on that note, it is time for me to collect some fellows, and we will get this put together. All right, it's the next day. I got everything all put together last night. I got everything just about done at about midnight, so I was out there pretty late again, but everything's all set pretty much as it needs to be. So yeah, just picking away, I guess. I've still got a fair amount more to do, as I've said, but it's looking pretty good. Right now it is quite chilly out. I got everything put together pretty much just in time. Last night it got pretty cold towards the end, but lucked out because I had pretty mild weather the whole time I was doing everything, so it wasn't too miserable. Now it's, I don't even know. It's quite windy, and it's probably single digits, so I don't know. But rockers came out pretty good. Pleased with how all that came out. Everything's all buttoned up. And welds all more or less ground. I've got to do a little bit of finish grinding on some of these, but came out pretty good, I would say. This side I was able to save about that much of the rocker so I can kind of keep that seam. I got the fronts of everything kind of primed up after I got it all put together, so it's rust proof sort of under the fenders, and then I'll paint match the rockers some point later. On this side, when I put it together, it wasn't quite right, so I was able to do some kind of fun custom lead work down here. I had to, well, when I put it all together, the rocker sat a little in from the door, so did some lead work, got the gap pretty decent, so it sits a little better. I mean, we're not going for perfection here. That's a factory-ish gap. This door's a little jacked, but that's pretty close to a factory fitment. So, I'm not trying to save the world, but I figured I'd make it out of lead because it's good practice and because lead work is kind of fun. So, that's about it, I think. Yeah, got to finish all the other stuff in the bed and get everything paint matched, but I think that's a wrap for this project for now. Classes start tomorrow, so I guess until more stuff happens.